Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Using Historic Records in the Classroom, Consider the Source, New York. I have just a few housekeeping notes to mention. Number one, if you have any sound or technical issues today, please let me know in the chat box with a direct message, and I'll do my best to help you out. Two, this webinar is being recorded, and the recording, along with a PDF version of the slideshow, will be sent out to all registrants within the next week or so. And finally, we do have some time built in at the end to answer any questions that may come up, but please feel free to type them into the chat box at any point throughout the presentation, and we'll get to them all at the end. So before we jump in, I just wanted to share a little bit about the Documentary Heritage and Preservation Services for New York program. DHPSNY, as we like to call it, is a collaboration between the New York State Archives and the New York State Library, with services provided by the Conservation Center for Art and Historic Artifacts. DHPSNY is a statewide program that provides free planning and education services to support the vast network of collecting institutions, such as archives, libraries, historical societies, museums, and other organizations that safeguard and ensure access to New York's historical records and library research materials. DHPSNY services include archival needs assessments, preservation condition surveys, strategic planning assistance, and access to a variety of educational programs, such as this webinar. To learn more about our services, please visit DHPSNY.org. And with that, I am going to pass things over to Jordan to get us started.
Hello, I'm Jordan Jace. I'm the education coordinator for the New York State Archives and the Archives Partnership Trust. I do educational programming for teachers and students and provide resources for teachers and students as well. Let's see here. There we go. And so I'm here today to talk a little bit about how teachers are looking to connect with repositories and primary sources to be able to bring those documents into their classrooms and work with their students. We launched a website last year. We got funding just before COVID. And so we have spent that time period developing the website, beta testing it. It's called considerthesourceny.org. And it's a place where teachers can go and students to browse thousands of historical records, learning activities that are already created by teachers for teachers, or create their own from scratch. And so it's a very interactive website that allows teachers to easily bring primary sources into their classroom. From not just the New York State Archives, but from repositories across the state that we've partnered with over the years with grant projects that we've done. Currently, we're under a grant from the Institute for Museum and Library Services, the Diversity and Collaborative Knowledge Program, about halfway through the grant period, and it was to establish a statewide network and program to join together teachers with the holders of primary sources to help build collaborative relationships between the educators and those places and the individuals that hold those records, and also to identify records from throughout New York State that address or speak to the history of underrepresented groups. So being the New York State Archives, we have state government records, so not always representative of all voices. So we have partnered with repositories across the state and continue to partner with repositories to identify records that they have. There's money in the grant to help digitize those records and make them available on Consider the Source. And we've also partnered with the Empire Library Network and the New York Heritage Program. So we are also helping them with digitizing records, so records can go both on New York Heritage and also on considerthesourceny.org for teachers and students. So we've got several repositories that have signed up. And so hopefully today, if you are representative of a repository in New York and may have some records related to underrepresented voices, and we have a very broad definition of underrepresented voices. So this includes anyone throughout any period in history who would have been marginalized or not included in the dominant narrative. Women, migrant workers, people of color, indigenous communities. So a very broad definition of the underrepresented, but we've found a lot of great documents already and we're still searching for more. So we still have funds for digitization. So if that's something you're interested in, please reach out. And so here's the slide and you'll get a copy of this slide deck, but we can help with digitization, metadata, and accessing the historical records. So it's not just limited to the digitization. If you have items that are digitized, but you need to create metadata for them, and the money is tagged for a broad array of different types of services. So if you need to send something out to a digitization service, it can pay for that. The money can also pay to hire an intern or a temporary archivist to come in and write the metadata for you, and to get it ready to go up online. The only part that we would ask is that there's at least a few documents in there that you'd be willing to let us put up on Consider the Source. It goes up as a low-res JPEG, so not publication quality, but high enough so that teachers and students can zoom in and out of the document and analyze it and work with it. We have money available for that. We can also, if you have things available, you just don't have a place to put them, we have a place that we can upload them to make them more accessible and more available. And we link back to your institution. So when it would drive people to come and look at what you have in addition to what we've put up on the website. And then if you have ways that you want to connect with teachers and ideas for workshops or programming, and you want some help with that, I can also help with that. So please reach out if any of those things sound like something that your organization would be interested in. Just a little bit about what teachers are doing with documents and students. I don't know how many of you have heard about the Seal of Civic Readiness, but this is a new seal for high school graduates in New York State that they can get in addition to their Regents diploma. That just says that they've gone above and beyond and done the requirements to meet this seal. The requirements include civic readiness capstone project. So their senior year, 11th, 12th grade, they can do a research project on an issue in their community, identify the issue, talk about the history of the issue in their community, and then talk about possible solutions or ideas for making that problem better, or remedying the issue. So that's a capstone project. There's also a research project in middle school where they could do a research project, which would be heavily reliant on primary sources. And also just learning about literacy, information literacy. Primary sources are great for fulfilling all of those parts of this Seal of Civic Readiness. So it's a point system. They have to get, I think, 6 points. And there's a list of things they can do, including taking the Regents exam and getting a proficient score or a mastery score on that. So you can find out more about that. I included it in the list of resources that I sent over. You'll get a copy of as well. Now, so what we've done now is we did spring institutes, and we brought together teachers with historians and representatives, archivists from repositories to talk about how we can help them collaborate. From those institutes, repositories signed up to host some of our teachers for a day of research and information about what the repository holds, and teachers brainstormed ideas for lesson plans and learning activities. Those learning activities are all going up on Consider the Source as the teachers write them and submit them. And so here's just an example. Some teachers went to the Buffalo and Erie County Public Library to look through the resources they had in their local history room and their collections. And one of the teachers was extremely excited to find that there was a Buffalo Criterion, which was a Black press, a newspaper from the 60s. And she had no idea that this even existed. And so actually she's a school librarian. So she built some lessons around students and newspapers and analyzing newspapers and understanding difference of perspective, depending on who owns the newspaper and who's writing for the newspaper. And so this is one of the activities that she created. And then one of the things that we're also looking for is documents related to urban renewal. So a few of the city repositories have signed up to provide some of those records, but there were 91 urban renewal projects in New York State. And so this is a history that is not often taught because there aren't a lot of resources to teach it, but it's very impactful because these students can look around their communities today and see the impact of urban renewal still today. So it's you know, that whole civic action, civic literacy, understanding your community and how it got to be the way it is. The urban renewal records really provide a glimpse into that history. So if you repository, you know of one that has those records, we're also actively looking for those to build those resources for teachers and students. Now, consider the source. The name comes from a book that was published in the mid-90s by the archives for teachers and students to learn about how they can find historical records in their classroom and bring them into their classroom. And so it was a book, an actual physical book that went out to every school, but we've made it available online on Consider the Source. So if that's something you want to look through just to get an idea of how teachers would be using documents in the classroom, it's a great tool, very accessible, easy to look at. So I wanted to point that out as well. Now, so what does it look like once we find these records and we put them on to Consider the Source? So I'm going to show you a little bit about why Consider the Source is such a innovative way for teachers to access primary sources and why they're really excited about it, because it really makes it easy for them to grab the documents and bring them into the classroom. Let's see how quickly this will load here. All right, can you just let me know, are you able to still see the PowerPoint, or can you see my website now?
We just see the PowerPoint.
Okay, let me move this over then. And now, still the PowerPoint?
Still just the PowerPoint.
Hold on 1 second. And now?
Now we're good.
Okay, thank you. And so this is what the website looks like. They have to register for an account, teachers do, in order to save learning activities and use them with their students. It's free, it will always be free. It is also EdLaw 2D compliant. So I don't know how many of you know about this, but there is a law, a New York State law, to protect personal information and privacy of students. And so what happens is the students can complete the learning activity on the website, but they save it as a PDF and then they send it to their teacher. So all the information, all their answers, their name, all of those things get saved to the PDF, and we don't collect any of that information. So we are compliant with that law so that teachers and districts can feel free to use the website. If you do register for an account, and anybody can register, even if you're not a teacher, you do get 1 free year of New York Archives magazine digitally through the website. Comes up as a PDF, so you'll get 4 issues because it's a quarterly magazine. And we do provide an educator guide for those magazines available on the website. So I'll just show you that page so you can at least look and see kind of how we're connecting our resources with educators. So educators are always looking for ways to get that historical background, historical context, especially for local history. And the magazine allows them to do that in a, I don't know, pretty enjoyable way, very digestible for teachers. So now on the website, once they register for an account, anybody can browse the historical records. So you can all come on here and play with the website even without registering. Registering just, again, lets you save the learning activities to share them with students. And we have, let's see here, if you go to the home page, you can see we have 2,343 primary sources and almost 2,000 learning activities now that have been created and shared so teachers can access them on the website. When they browse historical records, it brings them to a topic browse page. We're working on adding some new topics as teachers are using the website. They're giving us ideas of things they'd like to see. So we are being responsive to that to make some changes. But these are the topics right now that they can browse by. And let's see here. You can also browse by historical era, primary source type, and region. And so as we're doing this regional work, it's very important that teachers be able to find those local primary sources. So there's a whole, which I'll show you in a minute, there's a whole way to tag everything by region. And so I'll just show you Western New York, which will include those lessons that the teacher there for the Buffalo Criterion created lessons for. These are all the documents we have. So everything that's been scanned shows up in here. And this is one of the documents that the teacher used in a lesson that she created on the Little Harlem in Buffalo. And so this is the document. You'll see here's the metadata. So whatever metadata the repository provides for us appears over here on the right-hand side, along with a link to the document in their repository. And now if the document appears in a learning activity, we have those listed at the bottom here. So this is the teacher's learning activity that she created. And so this is what it looks like on the teacher side when they're looking at learning activities. There's an instruction box for teachers. So this is all the instructions that teacher wrote for that learning activity. And this is what the student view looks like. So there's the first document. You tap on it, it calls it up so that they can see it in large. And here's the questions that were developed to go with that document. And again, here's another document. And then the questions. So if a teacher wanted to use this, they would just copy it to their account. They have to create a unique name. So every activity has a different name. So I would make a copy. Oh, someone's already done that one. So just you can put a number on it, you can put initials on it, whatever, to make it your own. So this is what the tagging system looks like for the learning activities. And so then they can choose to keep it just the way it is if they're copying activity, or they can change it depending on the lesson. These are all the documents in this lesson. So there's quite a few documents related to the history of Little Harlem that were provided by the Buffalo and Erie County Public Library. So if a teacher wanted to take out some of these documents, they just hit the X. They wanted to move them around, they could just drag them and move them around. And then they can also upload their own document. So if they have a document that they like to use, but it's not on our website, they can upload a JPEG to the learning activity. So it really makes it very user-friendly for the teacher to be able to create anything they'd like for their students, tailor it to their classroom. This is the page they write instructions on. So this is instructions for students, a conclusion for students if they want them thinking about something before they come back to class the next day. And then this is, again, those detailed instructions for the teacher. And they can change those any way that they want when they make the activity their own. Here's the question page. So here's all the documents that go with the questions. And then here's the headings, the questions. You can also put narrative boxes in. So if a teacher wanted to highlight an excerpt for the students, they would do that by adding a narrative box. They can add more questions. They can take away questions, move them around, whatever it is they'd like to do with their learning activity. And so very interactive. And then on this page, just the final page, if they want to use it with their students, they have to publish it. That just leaves it in their account for them to use. No one else will see it. If they want other teachers to see it, which we encourage because, you know, collaboration and sharing and learning from each other, they would just hit the public button here. So it would show up if another teacher is browsing the learning activities. So in a nutshell, that's kind of the teacher back end of how they do things with the documents. So while they can browse historical records, they can also just look at the learning activities that we have available. And so they can look at that by topic as well, or historical era, primary source type. But here they can also browse by grade level, activity type. We have 5 different types of activities. We have an interpreting the evidence, comparison and contextualization, chronological reasoning and causation, evaluating the evidence, and geographic reasoning. So interpreting the evidence is really just breaking a document down. So typically one document, but they could have more than one here if they wanted to. But I'll just show you an example. Here's the Act for Gradual Abolition, which we have here at the State Archives. Now, I don't know how many of you know, but most students do not read cursive. It's a dying art, dying skill. So we have added a transcript button. So if your repository were to provide a document, if you had a transcript, that would be fantastic. But if you don't, we can create one here, and it's a page by page transcription, so that the student is still seeing the original document next to the much easier to read transcription. So that is one of the things teachers really like about this, makes the documents much more accessible to their students. And so again, if they wanted to use it, they would copy it. The student view looks like this. And on this one, we also included the transcription down in the lesson, so students wouldn't have to keep popping back up here since it's a longer document. But there's the transcription, and here's the questions. And we do pre-populate questions for teachers when they create an activity from scratch. Those basic sourcing questions: who created it, when, who, where, why, all those things. But again, they can delete them or keep them or change them, whatever they want to do to them. But we thought that would just be a handy way for them to have a ready-made lesson from scratch if they so desired. And I should also say that what we've done for individual documents, so if a teacher chooses to create something from scratch in interpreting the evidence document, they can, let me see, find a good one here. So here's a poster. And so if I want to create a document, if I find a document, I want to create an activity right from that page, I can just hit the orange button, pick the kind of activity I want to create, give it a name. And then choose the information here, which I'll just do quickly here. Not even sure which one. Probably will know one. Let's see. And let's see here. It's broadside. I'm going to say middle school. And let's say New York State. And 101. I'll create the activity. So there's the document. Now, if it's a single document, what they can do is they can annotate the document for their students. So here they could call it up, and they can add text. They can crop it if they want them just focused on a certain part of it. They can write on it, draw on it. The other thing they can do is they can drop pins. So they have a selection of pins here, lots of different shapes and colors, but and then they can type on it. So the teacher could call attention to certain parts of the political cartoon or broadside or whatever they want students focused on. So it just gives them an added ability to scaffold or help the students along with the analysis of the document. And then if I go back to browse here, I'm going to go to the learning activities. So another example, we partnered with the the Northport Historical Society on Long Island, and they hosted teachers as well over the summer. And the teachers found some really interesting documents there. They were very excited to bring back to their classroom. So I can show you that as an example. So one school librarian found documents on sand mining. So that's just to give you an idea of maybe some things you have in your repository that teachers would be interested in that you wouldn't quite know that they were going to be interested in until you kind of see some examples. So, so sand mining on Long Island, the North Shore, was destroying, basically the North Shore was disappearing. And so civic associations started to kind of protest that ability for companies to continue the sand mining. And so she found documents related to that history. So I'll go to the student view here. And really she focused on conflict between the environment, protecting the environment, and making sure that you had a healthy economy and jobs and access to resources. And so there's some great images that she found there. And there's a map, and it's focused on, the lesson is focused on Eaton's Neck, which is in this area right here. So she's got some geography going on. The civics associations were urging the governor, Roosevelt at the time, to sign the bill. So what happened is the legislature passed it, so they just needed the governor to sign it. And so there's lots of posters and things that are produced at this time, trying to convince people to write in and request that the bill be signed. And so what ends up happening in the end is it's vetoed. And so Roosevelt vetoes it for several reasons, but given the fact that it was the Depression era, so this is where it comes into the curriculum and students understanding historical context. So it's Depression era, there's no job, jobs are sparse, and the sand is going to New York City to help build the roads and the skyscrapers and all the buildings. And so he doesn't want to hurt that part of the economy. And they had already agreed to let the sand companies mine the sand from there. And so he vetoes it. But the lesson kind of takes students through the process of civic readiness. So the idea that as a member of a community, you have agency, you have the ability to participate in these sorts of activities, write in and ask for the governor to sign a bill or veto a bill or whatever your perspective or understanding of the issue is. So this is a great lesson, great example of some documents found in a local repository, and she didn't know they were there. We went in for the day and they just started showing us things that they had. And she saw these and she's like, oh, I wanna do a lesson on this for students. So she's partnering with her social studies teacher to have the students come to the library and learn about this topic and how to analyze documents and learn from what's happened in their own communities. So that's another example of a repository providing documents. And let's see here, something else to show you. Okay, another example we have is we did several Erie Canal projects, but a lot of local repositories have these documents. And so teachers really like this one. It's a Vote No broadside from the Boone County Historical Society. And again, we have several lessons already made for teachers to take and bring into their classroom and share with their students. So that's another example. And this one also, like the other thing I should say is historical context is really important for the teachers too, to be able to understand how the document fits into the larger history of an area or even in the country or globally. And so we always try to provide some historical context for them with the documents that they have. And then a lot of times we'll also provide that for the students. So students understand kind of the history, the background before they start analyzing the document. And then this one has a lot of questions related to the canal, and interesting that Binghamton, not really along the canal. So, but not wanting to have to spend tax money, to enlarge the canal. So I think they even mentioned that it's not even going to be spent, probably be spent for that. So they're going to take your money and the gigantic steal is what they call it. So again, another example of a document that you may have something like that similar in your repository that teachers could really benefit from bringing into their classroom. All right, I think maybe I'll open it up to questions now. I know it's only about a half hour in, but I usually have quite a few, so I'll see what you have for questions.
There's none in the chat so far, but we'll give folks a minute to type them out.
Okay. Well, while we're waiting for some questions, I can also show you. So a lot of projects we've done in the past before we have this website, and they've been on different iterations of the archives website, but we put those all in one spot here for teachers to access. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with some of the things that we've done. Some of your organizations may have participated in some of these projects. We do have short videos for teachers to learn how to use primary sources in their classroom. So on different types of primary sources, what is an archive? Some of them are in Spanish and English. And then also how to find documents. So here's some information on how to go to a town clerk's office and do some research, county clerk's office. I think we also have one for museum or just a private history organization here. It was filmed at the Adirondack Experience, but also how to use different documents in the classroom. So we have those. We also have it was a booklet, but we've turned it into an online resource on how to research the history of your school. So they may even come into a local repository looking for some of those records when they're researching the history of their school. That's actually based on our Google Analytics. That's a very popular part of the website. A lot of people have been using that. So throughout the ages is a visual resource. And so this one I think is all archives documents, but this would give you an idea too of some of the images you might have at your repository that teachers would find useful. We've got a whole series of images on ice harvesting, which is very popular with elementary school teachers, for students to learn how to analyze documents, do chronological reasoning, learn about the environment and geography. So that's a heavily used resource as well. La Escuela, we did in English and Spanish, so the lessons are available in both English and Spanish, and it is on Latinx history and culture. And so these are the topics within that resource, but if the teacher clicks on that, and these are all of the learning activities. And this one, we did partner with quite a few repositories that provided us with documents around this history, since we did not have a lot here at the state archives. And World War I. So these are based on documents that were sent in by local historians to the state historian when he was going to write a book about the Great War. The book never got written, but we have boxes and boxes of documents that were sent in by local communities, local historians, to document their community's participation in World War I. And so there's some great documents in here as well. And then again, here's the Erie Canal. We have the time machine, and we also have the book. So I don't know how many of you are aware of that, but Cobblestone had published it for the archives, I think around year 2000. But we've now made it an online digital resource for teachers and students to access. I don't know why it's being slow loading here, but I will stop. So we have the full ability to do this. So even if we put documents up in the browse section and learning activities, we also can create landing pages with, I don't know why it's being so slow. My internet may not be so great. Moment. Have any questions come in?
We have had one. So while this is loading, I guess you can answer this one, which is, as a repository, how do we start partnering with you to show our documents?
So you would just reach out to me. So my email is on the last slide. I can also put it in the chat. You would just contact me directly and to start the conversation, and whatever state you're in and what you need us to help with, or just putting them up on Consider the Source, you would just let us know. And we have a Google workspace that's for nonprofit that has share folders that are unlimited access. or unlimited storage. And so what we've done, most of the repositories have just dropped the version of the document that they want. It has to be a JPEG, but whatever size, into that shared drive. And then we have a metadata spreadsheet. So you would just put the document title and whatever metadata you want to go with the document onto the spreadsheet, and provide that along with the scans of your documents. But reaching out to me initially, and then letting me know, what you need help with. If you need things digitized, you need help with metadata, or you just want to provide documents, you would just let me know that. And then I would send you the instructions and the link to drop the things into the shared drive.
And we have one other question. How does this tie in with local historians and their resources?
So local historians, we actually have partnered with quite a few. So if I know in some places, the historian holds the records, and then in a lot of places it seems to be it's either in the local library's history room or in the local historical society, but the historian kind of knows all the things that are there. So there's two things with the historians. In fact, I'll show you what I did. I presented at AFNI's, and I created a repository or a page for historians. And we do have some slide decks that were put together by a teacher of teachers. So she's a professor at St. Rose, Christy Fragnoli, and she has created these for us as part of this project. So information for historians and repositories on what teachers are doing. So we've got those slide decks here available, and also information about partnering with us. And I thought I had put it on here, but maybe I haven't. I did, here, Google form. So if you wanted to use this, you could as well, to reach out to me. But you could put what kind of documents you have that you want to provide, where you're from, any questions you have, and you can actually upload files here, and there's directions on how to do that. But again, you can also just contact me. But for historians, it's the same thing. So if you have records that you'd like to share on Consider the Source with teachers, you just have to let me know, and then we can go from there. So anybody that has a repository that would like to contribute documents can do that, whether it's a historian or an archivist. See if this works now. There we go. So what we did is we put it up by chapters. So the preface and acknowledgements is there. And then each chapter in this book, it's a great resource, has at least one, some of them have more than one historical background essay written by a historian about the canal. So this one was written by Daniel Larkin from SUNY Oneonta. So it gives all of that background information. And then these are all the learning activities and documents that go with that section of the book. And we knew teachers really liked the book, but the book's not published anymore. I think you could get it on eBay. I think it's like $300 and some. It's ridiculous. I had no idea. But you don't need the book because you can get it all through here now. And again, these all have transcripts with them. So anyway, I wanted to make sure I showed you that as well. And then the last one was the Legacies Project, and this was done in Albany, Syracuse, Buffalo, and New York City. And it is documents related to the Latino and Chinese history and culture. And there's some lessons on here that teachers have been using for years and they love, around like the Chinese Exclusion Act and smuggling Chinese in through Buffalo across the Great Lakes there, and then also just things about Chinese life and culture in the United States in these different cities. And so that's another great resource as well. So lots of examples on here for you if you're part of a repository looking to see what it is that teachers are looking for. You can see a lot of examples on Consider the Source to get you kind of started that way. All right, see, there's another question.
Yes, so this is, we have several curriculum guides that cover specific topics, native contact, social welfare, etc., already published and using primary documents. Is there a place to share these, and would we have to break them down by lesson or document?
So the way the website works is for teachers that would be within those learning activities. So, but I can say if you have if it's a curriculum guide, and if it's several lessons or learning activities, you would create them within here. But if it is several documents and it's like one activity that goes with several documents, you can do that in here as well. But yes, you would put them into a learning activity. Now, there's two ways to do that. One, you as an organization can create an account here on Consider the Source, and you can just upload those documents. Like I said, I showed you how teachers could upload their own. You can upload them that way just into the learning activity. If you do that, they only appear in your learning activity. If you send us the documents, they would appear in this Browse Historical Records section as well. So to be clear, the Browse Historical Records, these are all uploaded here at the archives. Either me, I have an intern with this project as well. And he's here through August. So he helps with uploading documents and all the metadata that goes onto this browse side. So if you were interested in doing that, you could send us all of the documents. If you have them scanned, you could send us the documents and your PDF of your learning activities, and we can put them into Consider the Source that way. Or you as an organization, like I said, could create an account and upload them just to the learning activity. It would be, your choice. I do know a lot of repositories do have resources they've created over the years. And that's one of the reasons how this project came to be is I hear that a lot. Oh, we've got all these great resources, but like teachers don't seem to want to use them, or we get a few teachers to use them and then they retire. And then, then it's a whole nother outreach process to reach the new teachers that have come in. So on Consider the Source, it would be that, getting shared constantly with other teachers and getting used. So hopefully that answers your question.
All right. Well, we haven't had any more questions come in since that one. So are there any final things that you want to share with us before we depart?
Let's see here. I would just say that on the last, can you see the slides again or not?
Yeah, they're up.
Okay, so just the last slide has my contact information, so don't hesitate to reach out. Any sort of question or idea you have, definitely reach out to me. That's what we're trying to do is, and I should also mention that through this project, I have teams in all 9 regions. So I have a project coordinator, a collections coordinator, and an education coordinator in each of the 9 regions. That's part of this project and this program. So while you reach out to me initially, we are partnered with all the library councils throughout the state, with the exception of the Metro Library Council. They're not participating, but all the other regions, the library councils are participating with this project. Most of the collections coordinators come from either a library council or a library or repository. And the project coordinators as well come from those sorts. And then the education coordinators are mostly from BOCES, but they all are actively working on this project. So once you contact me, let me know what you have and what you want to do. Then I can also put you in touch with them. And then you've got a constant person to contact in your region to help you continue to work with us and consider the source. So there's lots of people out there doing this work, and so it's not just me. But for this presentation, for initial contact, just reach out to me, and then we can get you started with getting things up on Consider the Source.
Okay, thank you so much, Jordan. I guess we'll end things a little bit earlier. So you're welcome, everyone, for the extra 10 to 15 minutes in your day. This is actually our last webinar for the year. And so we'll be announcing our 2023 educational calendar probably end of December-ish, but we do still have one more program happening, which is our Archives 101 online course. This is previously offered last year, and so we're bringing it back. And so you still have one more day to sign up for that. It's going to be starting next Monday, and it runs about 4 weeks long. For any other educational program content, you can check out our calendar at dhpsny.org/education. So thanks again, everyone, for joining us, and I hope you'll have a wonderful rest of your day.